Released 10 years apart, you'd expect the newer version to come out on top, but is that really the case? On the left is the UCS Slave I, releasing in 2015, and on the right, the 2025 Jango Fett Starship. Will here from the Brick Bracket, and today I'll be comparing two of my all-time favourite LEGO Star Wars Ultimate Collector's Series sets. I'll be putting them head to head in terms of minifigures, design, including play features, and overall value that each brings to the table. If you enjoy the video, remember to like and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching, and let's get into things. To start off with, let's take a look at the boxes, which really shows the difference in their eras. In 2015 we had a vibrant and dynamic box art, showing the ship soaring through the clouds on Bespin. Fast forward to 2025, we now have a minimalist black design aimed squarely at adult collectors. While I don't hate this design change, I do think it would look a lot cooler if it showed the ship on Camino, or even in the asteroid field. Another omission on the newer box is the golden Ultimate Collector's Series seal, which was actually last seen in 2017 on the UCS Snowspeeder. For me, only Jango's displays the piece count, which is something I'll be discussing later on in the video, however both would if these weren't UK copies. The back of the boxes showcase the ships from a different angle, as well as some of the play features, which I'll be diving into shortly. As for the instructions, it's the same story, where Jango's feels a bit less exciting on the cover. Like with all UCS sets, opening them up you'll find some information on the ship in-universe, as well as the design process. Moving on to the minifigures, Boba's Slave I comes with 4, as well as the Harning Carbonite piece, versus the 2 found in Jango's. Comparing Jango and adult Boba directly, both are some of the best quality minifigures that LEGO's ever produced. Each one is currently exclusive, with great arm, leg and toe printing. The design on Jango's helmet is slightly more refined, and he also gets a brand new rangefinder piece, which is far more accurate to the source material. However, Boba does come with a really cool printed cloth piece. Removing the helmets, you'll notice that Jango uses the newer, more accurate skin tone. You also have the option of displaying in this way, as they include a hairpiece. There's really not much in it, but just because of a couple more accuracies, I think I'd give Jango the edge. Taking a look at the rest of the figs, there's really no competition. Paired with Jango is young Boba, who, among fans, is definitely the most controversial here. The hairpiece, colour choice and print details are all questionable, but I think even if this was a 10 out of 10 minifigure, he still wouldn't hold up against the lineup we had in 2015. The Bespin Guard, Han, and a Stormtrooper, of which I think this is still the best version, are all perfect inclusions, and, to me, make it obvious that the 2025 set would have benefited from an extra fig or two. If they'd thrown in an Obi-Wan or a Kaminoan, then it might have been harder to judge, but when it comes to the minifigures, both in quantity and quality, 2015 is the winner. Now for the builds. When I first picked up Boba's Slave I back in 2015, I honestly thought that it was as close to perfection as LEGO could get. So when I heard that we'd be getting a UCS Jango's one 10 years later, I wasn't expecting much more than a simple recolour, which, to be fair, I think I would have still been happy with. But that's not what LEGO gave us. At first glance, these two ships might look like clones of one another, just like Jango and Boba. But once you take a closer look, you'll realise that the 2025 model has had a complete redesign. Starting off with the stands, both slot into the back of the ships and allow them to be displayed in the upright position. They can be equally as fiddly to line up, but Jango's feels a bit sturdier overall. It does away with the silver grille pieces, but by far the biggest upgrade is the printed display plaque, which would have saved me a lot of trauma if they did this all along. Removing the ships from their stands, you'll notice the first play feature, or I guess I should say function, as these are more display focused sets. Both have wings which stay upright using gravity. They're connected and turn in unison, which works quite well. With the ships now in their landed position, let's take a look at the cockpits. Both canopy pieces were designed specifically for their sets, but Jango's is 2 studs longer, making the proportions much closer to what we see in universe. Another big improvement is that it's much easier to remove, being attached by 4 studs rather than a strong Technic connection. Inside Boba's, there's only space for a single minifigure, which now feels pretty weak compared to the 5 seats crammed into the new set. Boba's cockpit can be manually rotated, which is fun, but is actually inaccurate and was invented by Kenner for the 80s toys. You'll also find a clip where you can store his blaster, and there's a mix of stickered and printed control panels, but the whole interior looks pretty sparse when compared with Jango's. On his, the upper level's on rails and can be removed for easier access. The design for these seats looks great, as do the stickers. Above this area, you'll notice one that reads Uvu 4 in Arabesh, which is a nod to the prison moon from which Jango stole the ship. Behind this removable section, there's a hidden compartment to store his blasters and jetpack, which also has a small vial of Bacta. I've got to say, I was blown away with just how much more spacious and detailed the interior of Jango's is, and I think it set a new standard for future UCS sets. Moving around to the nose of the ship, both feature twin blaster cannons, which rotate simultaneously. Boba's have a slightly wider range of motion, but jut out a bit further, while the ones on Jango's are sleeker, making use of smaller pieces for a more intricate design. I especially like how the tips of his are slightly staggered. Moving up the body of the ship, this whole nose section is set at an angle which is slightly more shallow than Boba's. Admittedly, it's not the most noticeable change, but shows just how much the designers cared about improving the accuracy on this newer model. One of my favourite play features out of both of these sets are the hidden missile compartments that can be found on Boba's. They can be opened on both sides. Sadly, these didn't make it onto Jango's, which is a real shame, most likely sacrificed for the more accurate proportions. Instead, his features some small exterior blasters. Right above are some more Arabic markings. If anyone knows what that's a reference to, let me know in the comments. Unfortunately, both sets make use of plenty of stickers, but by far the worst ones are the ones for the cockpit. I understand that printing these might not have been possible, but they're a pain to line up, and the white of Jango's doesn't quite match the piece like it's supposed to. On both builds, the wings and the surrounding area are fairly similar in design, but thanks to the new parts available, Jango's looks that little bit cleaner. The base of the ship is where the newer model really shines. The shaping is phenomenal, with far better curvature than Boba's. Again, this is thanks to the newer, ever-increasing roster of smaller pieces, which really make the massive dark reddish brown ones of 2015 look outdated. Moving around to the loading bay, Boba's offers a clip on the inside of the hatch, which can be used to put Captain Solo in the cargo hold. However, on Jango's, the designers really went above and beyond, implementing what is one of the most satisfying play features of all time. If you press down the ramp, it lowers, while at the same time opening the hatch. It's a great accuracy, as seen in Attack of the Clones, and I've played with it over and over again. Moving to the back of the ship, they made it nice and easy to remove any unwanted cargo. The thrusters on both, blue on Boba's and yellow on Jango's, look really cool, as do the 10x10 dish pieces, but this area on Jango's specifically looks so much more complete with far fewer exposed anti-studs. Also on his, they really nailed the shaping, making it a lot more oval-like rather than the elongated egg shape of Boba's, which I never had a problem with before, but now looks a lot worse in comparison. Overall, Jango's clearly wins in terms of design, but up until this point it's been a close match in terms of play features. Both have rotating wings, twin blasters, their own cockpit tricks, missiles for Boba, and the loading bay for Jango. So who comes out on top? Well, Jango's is hiding one more trick, which is of course, his seismic charge. You do need to remove some tiles to access it, and they don't slide open like you'd expect, but it does the job and can be displayed either open or closed. The charge itself uses stickers instead of prints, but I'm still glad it's here, and, in my opinion, its inclusion gives this set the better play features overall. So that's 2-1 in favour of Jango, having better design and functionality, but weaker on the minifigs, which leaves value for money as the final and deciding category. In 2015, Slave I had 1,996 pieces, retailing for $200 or £170. Adjusted for inflation, that's $270 or £230 in today's economy. In comparison, Jango's comes with 2,970 pieces for $300 or £260. That's around a 50% increase in pieces for about a 10% increase in price. But that doesn't say much, because the ships are near identical in size. It also comes with fewer and arguably worse figs. However, what it does offer is a considerable upgrade in terms of design, so I'm going to make it a draw in terms of value for money, which in turn means that the UCS Jango Fett Starship is the winner. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear whether you agree or disagree with me in the comments. More videos on the end screen now, and for more LEGO news, reviews and rankings, join me at the Brick Bracket.